My son-in-law looked me dead in the eye at my own dinner table and said, "We just don't have room for you on this trip, Edwin. It's a family thing." And my daughter, my own daughter, Paige, she didn't say a word, just looked down at her plate. I'm 67 years old. I've been through things that would break most people. Lost my wife, Carolyn, 11 years ago. Rebuilt my life from nothing after the lumber yard I worked for 30 years closed down. I am not a man who falls apart easily. But I'll be honest with you. That night, sitting at my own kitchen table in the house I paid for, in the chair I've sat in for 22 years, I felt something crack a little inside my chest. Let me back up. Paige is my only child. When she was small, she used to climb into bed with me on Saturday mornings, and we'd watch cartoons until noon. She was the kind of kid who saved her Halloween candy for months because she liked having something to look forward to. When Carolyn got sick, Paige was 19. She sat in that hospital room every single day for 4 months. I don't think I could have gotten through it without her. Then she met Derek. Derek Hollis came into her life about 6 years ago. He had a firm handshake and a lot of opinions, and he made Paige laugh, and I thought, okay, I can work with this. I'm not the kind of father who holds his daughter hostage. I wanted her to be happy. I told myself I'd give him a real chance. The first year was fine. We had dinners. We watched football. He had strong opinions about things he didn't know much about, but who doesn't at 32? I let it go. But then Paige got pregnant with my granddaughter, Lily. And somehow, after that, things shifted. Derek started talking about space, about needing more room, about how the house he and Paige were renting in Macon was getting tight. I offered to help them out. That's what you do. That's what I knew how to do. I gave them $20,000 for a down payment. Never mentioned it again. Never asked for anything back. You'd think that would earn a little goodwill. Instead, Derek seemed to get more comfortable being rude. He'd cut me off mid-sentence at family dinners. He started calling me Ed instead of Edwin, even after I mentioned I preferred my full name. Small things, but they add up. Paige stopped calling as much. When I visited, Derek would find reasons to leave the room. Once I brought a bottle of wine, a nice one, a Napa cab I'd been saving, and Derek picked it up, looked at it, and set it aside. Just set it aside. Opened a box of something himself. Didn't offer me a glass for an hour. I told myself I was imagining it. Then came Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Derek's parents, Hank and Gloria, nice enough people from Savannah, were in town, which was fine. The more the merrier. But Derek started talking about a trip, a big family vacation. He'd found a resort in the Florida Keys. Private beach, nice rooms, the whole thing. We're thinking late January, he said, after the holidays settle down. I said it sounded wonderful. I asked about the dates, figuring I'd clear my calendar. Derek kind of paused, and Paige looked at the table again. That look, I know that look now. That look means she already knew what was coming and had already decided not to fight it. It's just going to be us and my folks this time, Derek said. Keep it small. I didn't make a scene. I'm 67 years old. I don't make scenes. I nodded and said, "Sure, sounds good," and I changed the subject, but I felt it. I felt the shape of what was happening. Later that night, after they left, I called my buddy Terrence. We've been friends since the Air Force, 40 years, and I told him what happened. Terrence said, "Edwin, that man is chipping away at her. That's what they do, they chip." I didn't want to believe it, but I filed it away. January came. I did not go to the Florida Keys. Then, this past spring, Derek announced another trip. This one was bigger, a week at a resort in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. He'd rented a house, 6 bedrooms, private pool right on the water. His parents were coming. His sister and her husband were coming. Their 2 kids were coming. Paige and Derek and little Lily were going. I was not invited. This time, Paige told me herself. She called on a Tuesday evening. She said, "Daddy, I want you to hear it from me and not be surprised." And I thought, okay, at least she's calling. At least she's trying. But then she said, "Derek and I talked, and we think this year it should just be his side. Give his family some time with Lily." "Sure," I said. "Because what else do you say?" And then, and this is the part that stayed with me, she said, and honestly, Daddy, it's just easier sometimes. Without the extra dynamic. Extra dynamic. That's what I was, an extra dynamic. I sat with that for a long time after I hung up. Here's the thing nobody tells you about getting older and losing your spouse. People talk about the grief. They talk about the loneliness. What they don't tell you is how much of your identity was wrapped up in being somebody's partner, being the other half of something. When Carolyn died, I had to figure out who Edwin Nash was by himself. And it took years, but I did it. I found my footing again. Part of that was the in. About 4 years after Carolyn passed, I started looking around for something to do with my hands and my savings and the part of my brain that wouldn't quiet down. A buddy of mine, not Terrence, another friend, a man named Abe who I'd known from church, he was selling a property, small bed and breakfast on the Outer Banks. 8 rooms, old house, good bones, sitting on a double lot 2 blocks from the water. He was tired. His wife wanted to move closer to their grandchildren. He gave me a fair price. I had no idea what I was doing. But I learned. Lord, I learned. I renamed it the Saltgrass Inn. I put in 3 years of weekends and evenings and every dollar I had that wasn't already spoken for. I hired good people. A manager named Beverly who'd been running hospitality operations for 20 years and knew everything I didn't. A handyman named Otis who could fix anything. I updated the rooms, put in a small patio with a fire pit, got the right reviews on the right platforms. By the 3rd year, we were booking out most of the summer. I did not tell Paige about the inn. I know how that sounds, but here's the truth. She had made clear through 100 small signals that my life was background noise to her, that I was the extra dynamic. I wasn't hiding anything for malicious reasons. I just stopped volunteering information to people who'd shown me they weren't interested. And then, one evening in April, Beverly called me. "Edwin," she said, "you know that family booking we have for the last week of May? 6 adults, 2 kids, full house rental for the week?" I said, "Yes, I remembered approving it." She said, "I just got an email from the booking contact. His last name is Hollis. Derek Hollis, Macon, Georgia." I sat down in my kitchen chair. "The contact information," I said. "What's the address?" She read it to me. It was my daughter's house now. I want to be clear about something. In the days that followed, I thought very carefully about what to do. I could have called Paige. I could have canceled the reservation. I could have done a lot of things. Terrence told me to call her. He said, "Edwin, just call the girl." But I thought about extra dynamic. I thought about the wine Derek set aside. I thought about 11 years of showing up, of $20,000 with no strings, of being cut off at dinner tables and left out of trip planning and called Ed when my name is Edwin. I thought about Carolyn, who would have told me to be the bigger person, and then probably would have understood when I wasn't. I decided to let the reservation stand. I didn't know exactly what would happen, but I wanted to be there. I wanted to see my granddaughter, and honestly, a part of me, a small human part of me, wanted them to know. Beverly offered to comp the reservation or upgrade their rooms as a surprise. I told her no, let everything run normal, let them just be guests. I would be there that week doing what I always did, checking in on operations, meeting with the landscaper we'd hired, going over summer bookings. The day they arrived, I was out on the back patio with a cup of coffee and the week's reservation sheet when Beverly came to find me. "They're checking in," she said. "Front desk." I walked inside through the side hallway, stayed back near the office door. I could hear Derek's voice before I saw him, talking loudly about the drive, about traffic on 64, about how the GPS had taken them the long way. His mother was laughing. His father was leaning on the counter. Paige was holding Lily, who had fallen asleep on her shoulder. I watched my daughter for a moment. She looked tired. She looked like someone who had been managing a long drive with a toddler and a husband who talked loudly about traffic. And she just wanted to put her little girl down somewhere soft. I felt the crack again, different from before, softer. Then Derek looked up from the check-in paperwork and saw me. I watched his face go through several things in quick succession: confusion, recognition, recalculation. Edwin, he said slowly. Derek, I said. Paige turned around. Lily stirred on her shoulder. Face, I've thought about this a lot since. Her face didn't do what I expected. She didn't look caught. She looked for just 1 second, like she might cry. Daddy, she said. Hey, sweetheart, I said. Long drive? Derek's father, a decent man, I think, just not one to rock boats, said, You two know each other? Derek said very carefully, This is Paige's father. Oh, his mother said. She was genuinely warm about it. How wonderful. Are you vacationing here too? I said. I'm actually the owner. The silence that followed had a particular texture to it. Derek's father blinked. His mother looked between me and Derek and back again. Derek himself did not move. He stood at that check-in counter with his hand still on the pen, and he did not move. Paige shifted Lily from one shoulder to the other. The owner, she said. Going on 4 years now, I said. Beverly runs the day-to-day. I just like to come up for the summer bookings. Now, I want to be clear about something else because this is the part I think matters. I did not cancel their reservation. I did not change their rooms or raise their rates or find some excuse to make their stay miserable. I am 67 years old. I am not a petty man. What I wanted, what I had always wanted, if I'm honest, was not revenge. It was just to be seen. I invited them to dinner that first evening. Paige and I sat on the back patio after Derek's parents went to bed, with Lily asleep in her pack-and-play just inside the door, and we talked for the first time, really talked, in probably 3 years. She cried. I'm not going to tell you exactly what she said, because some things between a father and a daughter belong to them. But she told me that she'd known for a while that things had gotten wrong, that she'd let Derek become the loudest voice in rooms, where I should have had a seat, that she was ashamed of how she'd handled things. I told her about the inn, all of it. The 3 years of weekends, Beverly, the fire pit, the summer I'd had a burst pipe and Otis had spent 48 straight hours keeping the place from flooding. She laughed at that last part. First real laugh I'd heard from her in a while. I told her that I wasn't interested in being her husband's enemy, that I was interested in being her father and Lily's grandfather, and that I'd found a way to build a life that I was proud of, and I would like, if she was willing, for her to be a part of it. She said yes. Derek and I did not have a warm reconciliation. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. He was stiff the whole week, polite in the way people are polite when they know they've been caught being something they're not proud of. He and I are never going to be close. But he is the father of my granddaughter, and so I will be civil and I will mean it. What I remember most from that week is a morning near the end of their stay. I was drinking coffee on the patio, watching the water. Lily came toddling out in her pajamas. She'd slipped out before anyone noticed. 2-year-olds are like that, and she walked right over to me and climbed up into my chair like she'd done it 100 times before. She said, "Pop, pop, water." I showed her the water. We sat there for a while, the two of us, before Paige came looking for her. That's the part I think about now, that quiet, that small weight leaning against my arm. There's a thing that happens when you get older. People start to write you off. They stop thinking of you as someone still in the middle of something. They think your story is mostly told. But I was 64 years old when I signed the papers on the Saltgrass Inns. I was 67 when my daughter finally sat down and talked to me like I was still a person worth knowing. My story isn't done, not even close. I've got rooms to book and a granddaughter who calls me Pop Pop and a patio where I drink my coffee every morning and watch the Atlantic and think about Carolyn and how she would have loved every inch of this place. I think she would have said something like, "Edwin Nash, it took you long enough." She would have been right.